everybody. Dan Illman, Ashley Mailloux. The DRF race of the day for Sunday, August the 4th. Race number 8 at Mountaineer Park. Let's throw up the field. Grade 3, $500,000 West Virginia Derby. 3-year-olds looking to propel themselves into the divisional picture for the second half of the year. The number 3 Dragoon Guard, 9-5 on the morning line. Just looks like a late developing sort for trainer Brad Cox.
Absolutely, and I think he really stamped himself as the real deal in the Indiana Derby, where he actually didn't go off favorite there, but he had to face the likes of horses such as Strongfold and Form Patriot, and he took them gate to wire, Dan. Very impressive.
Talking to the trainers of both the 1 and the 5, they told me that they will scratch from the West Virginia Derby for other spots on Sunday, so that might affect the pace. We throw up the Timeform US pace projector for the West Virginia Derby. They did have the number 1 Baxley expected to make the lead in a fast-paced scenario. This pace projector will update once scratches are made official. With Baxley out, now Dragoon Guard might be able to grab the lead in the rail and might not have to go as quick to do so.
Yeah, I think he could certainly be forward here and kind of looking at others. You wonder else who will be trying to press him. And on paper, there's horses such as the 4 in here, Next Level. He doesn't have speed. Even horses such as the number 6, Agate Road. I just don't see anyone really going with him. The only horses we talked about is probably McQueen.
The horse that might be affected the most by this scratch is the number 6, Agate Road. Note the LP flag over his chiclet. That means he has the fastest Timeform US late pace rating, but he doesn't have any speed, and if they don't go fast, it could work against him. Baxley, the number 1, is scratched, so we'll start our analysis with the number 2, Dymatic. This horse, I thought, ran pretty well in the Texas Derby 2 starts back. He was 3-4 wide all the way around the track. He eventually made the lead after breaking an early bid on the turn, and then he was run down by the favorite. I liked him last time out in the Iowa Derby. He let me down. I couldn't see much of an excuse either.
I was going to bring it up. You and me both. We really liked him in that spot, and I don't know. I expected more from him. It's sort of a little bit of a head scratcher when it was all said and done. And Henro was just very game in that performance and has to face him again. I wonder what the tactics here will be. Regrouping Christian Torres. It just was just his second start aboard him, named to ride him again. I mean, sure, if he can run like he did 2 or 3 starts ago, he could be in the mix here. But a little kind of wary of him off that last out effort.
Here's the horse to catch and beat, the 3 Dragoon Guard. He's won his last 3 races for Brad Cox and Florent Giroux, including this win in the Indiana Derby. He went right to the lead, and he just opens up at about the 3/16 pole, and you're going to see Flo just gear down the final 70 yards, or else he would have won by more. Career best 92 Beyer speed figure. Brad just feels that this horse is getting bigger and stronger every day. He feels he's going to make a good late season 3-year-old and be a very good 4-year-old next year.
And he's got 2 nice drills after that win at Horseshoe Indy coming into this race, and he's really done nothing wrong on debut. He was a game second, and his last 2, he has been on the lead in those races, right, stretching out from the 7 Ace events. But even when you look at him in those 7 Ace races, he can rate. He can have that target in front of him. I think in this field, as we've talked about with the pace, he wants the lead. He can have it, and maybe that's what works the best for him against this group. But on paper, he's certainly the horse to beat now.
As a maiden, as a 2-year-old, the number 4 Next Level earned a grade 1 placing sprinting at Del Mar, but he really hasn't done too much since, although he has taken on some tough competition. No match for Society Man in the Matt Win, no match for Henro in the Iowa Derby, and with his lack of early speed, he could be up against it from a pace standpoint. But Keith DeZormo occasionally will pop at a big price in these sort of races.
Certainly does. And, Jared Loveberry's been aboard for those last 2. I liked his performance in the Matt Win. I think he ran really well, but it's going to come down to pace for him. You can see in his races where he's been able to kind of do a little bit better. It's that he's got the pace to run at. And I think we talked about the 6 being affected. I think he's really affected by the scratches as well, just looking at his running style. And, when we talk about the Iowa Derby, we're disappointed in Dematic, and he is another horse. I mean, he just never really got going in there. So I wonder if he had maybe an excuse last time out. It was a dull performance.
Mugatu is going to be scratched and run at Laurel Park on the turf on Sunday. So we'll move on from the 5 Mugatu to the number 6 Agate Road. Agate Road has shown off an explosive stretch kick on turf in his career, and while he has yet to win on dirt, he was good enough to finish second in the Sam F. Davis earlier this year. They tried the Louisiana Derby. That was too tough, and his 2 subsequent turf races weren't very good. I think the Lasix might be the key to getting Agate Road back to his best form, but I still wonder if he's better on turf.
Yeah, and it's tough to say with the Lasix because you go down the page, he's never raced with them, right? He's been in a lot of stakes races and been unable to race with Lasix for that reason. And they put the blinkers on last time out, and you can see they haven't decided to make a change there with him. I'm just concerned with kind of his, I would call he's regressed a little bit, right, in those last three. And the Sam Off Davis, I do think was a very good performance, looking at how far he had to close from off of it, and looking at the winner, No More Time, who was very hyped there in South Florida and Tampa, kind of looking at his races. So, with that said, the buyer really wasn't flashing. He got the pace help. So, again, another runner in here who might be pace compromised.
The number 7 McQueen makes his second start for New Connections, and they might have gotten a bargain when they bought this one for $25,000 at public auction in April. Here's his first start for the new barn, maiden special weight, an off-turf race at Hawthorne, and he just dominated this group. He wins by 7. He was trained by Todd Pletcher before. He's got a nice little pedigree. Now he's got to step all the way up, and maybe he's sort of in a tough spot as the one to do the dirty work pushing Dragoon Guard.
Yeah, really interesting. You mentioned the sales price on him because you look at his second place finish, his second start with Todd Pletcher, and his final horse behind him, Capital Idea, came back to win with an 84 buyer, and even a horse a little further down the page graduated in the following start with a 77. So it's not like he ran a bad race by any means, but you can see the connections decided to kind of change their stock around and they sold him. And gun runner is pretty expensive to breed too. So you got a deal there. And then to kind of recoup a lot of your money by winning the way that he did last time out, sure, they're going to take a swing with him here. And luckily for them, there's a couple of scratches. So they are getting a shorter field.
Take out the Kentucky Derby, and the number 8 Society Man has one good race after another on the page since winning his maiden, a shocking second in the Wood Memorial at 106 to 1 odds, and then a very comfortable winner last time out in the Grade 3 Matt Win. I talked to Danny Gargan earlier today, and he said this horse is training very well. He'd been working in company with Dornock to help that horse get ready for the Haskell, and he felt he was working just as well as Dornock. Danny also told me he's very concerned about the lack of pace in this race.
Yeah, I would think that'd be concerning as well. I will say though, at least when we saw him kind of his first start off that freshening, the one freshening he had, he was a little bit closer to it, and he ended up finishing third there in that maiden special weight event. And since then, he's split some field. He's been towards the back of the pack. I loved his Matt win. He made it look very easy in the end, and he kind of was able to, stamp himself as being a good horse after kind of seeing the Derby. But again, it's the Derby. You can draw a line through the Derby. It's just such a one race in a lifetime, big field. So much can go wrong, and a couple things can maybe go right, and just nothing went his way. And I think it was a lot for him. He graduated, he was second at a huge price, and then he went in the Derby. So to see him come back in the way that he did, really liked him. And I think he's a horse that, to me, a mile and a 16th really worked out well for him. And now he's got to go back to a mile and an eighth, but he still has a good effort at the distance.
The 9 is Henro. He's not going to be the favorite in this race, but he has the best Buyer speed figure, a 96 earned when winning the Iowa Derby last time out. We take a look at Henro, and he looked strong in this race. He tucked in behind the leaders. He finds a seam on the outside, and he grinds it out, showing that 2 turns wasn't a problem at all. He only raced once as a 2-year-old. He had the misfortune to catch Mystic Dan in his debut. I was talking to Chris Hartman earlier this week. He said with a better trip, he probably could have run second. He didn't break very well. He was very wide. Hartman told me he always wanted to stretch this horse out in distance, and Henro appreciated it last time.
And I think his running style really works out well for him. The fact that he can be quite forward, and he got tested last time out at the mile and a 16th. He was coming out of some sprint races, but once again, he didn't rush to the lead. He was able to stalk the pace, and I think that's key for him, especially now stretching out a little bit to a mile and an eighth. And with not a lot of speed signed on here, I think he will be in that sort of stalking position just off the pace, and maybe can mow them down late.
Before we take a look at our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time for the West Virginia Derby. I like what you said about Henro because I think that tactical speed's going to come in handy. He might be sitting in a great spot in third early, ready to pounce on the turn.
Yeah, that's my thought here. I do think he's going to offer more value in this spot in comparison to a horse such as Dragoon Guard. And a Dragoon Guard's done nothing wrong. And obviously, the complexion of this race has changed with the scratches of the 1 and the 5. But I'm just hoping that by having sort of that first run on everybody, he can kind of, pass a horse like Dragoon Guard if he's on the lead.
I'm a glutton for punishment, so I'll go back to Dematic one more time. He'll be a good price for Asmussen and Torres. I need them to get a little bit aggressive coming out of the gate. I want them to be sitting pretty close, just sort of inside Henro maybe in the second flight, ready for a fair chance turning for home. 9384 for Ashley, 2936 for me. We'll see what Dragoon Guard does. He'll start as the favorite, seeking his fourth straight win in the West Virginia Derby.